Welcome back, and in today's video I'm going to talk about the 50-30-20 rule and why I don't believe it's appropriate for most people. So what is the 50-30-20 rule? So what it means is, of your take home, how you allocate your money basically. So 50% should be spent on your needs, 30% should go on your wants, and the final 20% should go on things like savings. Now, if you only take home, say, £1,800 a month, £2,000 a month, then that only gives you £900 to £1,000 to spend on your needs, which in most parts of the UK isn't enough to run your own flat, property, whatever, with bills and all of that stuff. So it's largely ridiculous until you get to kind of probably 50k plus, really. You need to be taking home probably somewhere around £3,000 a month for you to be able to get a fairly comfortable living in some parts of the country. Like it's no good for people in London on 50k, for instance. Like £1,500 is not going to go particularly far. Or if you stick to it rigidly, you're going to be in a house share for most of your life. So it's just not realistic. So here's what I do instead. I spend up to 70% on mine, but the rule is flexible, right? You should look at money in a structured way, and so the rule that works for you can be anything. So you can split these percentages however you like. But if you're somewhere between, say, 30 and 40, or maybe even 30 and 50,000, then you could probably go to like a 70-20-10 rule. So 70% going on your needs, 20% going on wants, so eating out, all of those things, and then 10% on savings. But how you actually split that is entirely up to you. You could go 70-15-15, but try and find a structure that works for you. And the reason for putting a structure in place is that when you get pay rises, you can allocate your money accordingly. What you don't want to do is, when you get a pay rise, is to suffer from lifestyle creep. And so the money you've got allocated for your home, you'll never really be able to improve upon that because you increase your discretionary spending. So you start eating out more, you start buying yourself nicer clothes, which is great as a reward, but you don't want to put your entire pay raises into that sort of stuff, because you will over time start to see that you're not progressing through life as potentially as you might want to. Now, that's not to say that the be all and end all is an end goal where you're renting the biggest possible house, or you've bought the biggest possible house you can possibly buy. However, a lot of people's goals are moving towards having, the 3-bedroom family home that you can kind of live in forever, or bigger if you've got more children or a larger family. So that's why you have the structure. So I try to aim for around 70%, and I'm a fairly high earner and I live in a fairly expensive part of the country. And so I go for 70, and then 20% on my wants, and then 10% on my needs. Now that doesn't include my pension contributions, because my pension contributions are taken out before tax and national insurance. So I actually apply my rules to my take home, which is obviously after those have been taken out. So it's slightly different, but you can cater it to your needs. Living by any set of rules made by someone else is probably not going to get you where you want to be from a financial and personal satisfaction situation. So what you want to do is look up rules or look up guidelines for how to better manage your money and apply those, but tweak them to your own needs. Like, you don't have to think, oh, I can't make that 50% work, and so therefore I just won't do it at all. It's like you can make that something to aim towards. So my salary has increased fairly rapidly over the past 3 or 4 years, and so whilst I couldn't do the 50-30-20 back then, I could probably afford to now. I just choose not to because I have other goals. 70% of my stuff goes on needs, about 20% goes on my wants, and then 10% on general savings, like building up an emergency fund, saving for gifts and that sort of stuff. So that's kind of what I aim to get to. Now, it's not always the case that happens. I'm currently saving for a wedding and to move house next year, so it's probably slightly weighted more towards the savings element than eating out and stuff like that. My budget is pretty small for that sort of stuff. I'm not a big spender in that respect. So yeah, that is the 50-30-20 rule explained. What you should probably do is kind of make up some rules yourself and then try and transition through them. If you want to get to 50-30-20, which is a good place to be in terms of like savings and stuff like that, then great, but don't beat yourself up. If you have to start at 90% because you do take home £1,800 and most of that, I'll say a little over £1,600 is actually your living costs, then that's fine. And then you can do it a 90%, a 5% and a 5%, okay? Or you could do a 90%, a 10% and zero savings, because you just can't afford to save. Like, not everyone can, and that's okay. So focus on having a structure in place, and then if you get pay rises or you move into new jobs, try not to be too frivolous and treat yourself immediately. Try to spread those across and see if you can get the percentage up on the savings, because you'll thank yourself in the long term. Hopefully that's useful for you. What sort of rules do you live by in terms of budgeting? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you the next time for the next video.